I want to welcome you to our conversation here and invite you to introduce yourself so that we can have an introduction as to who you are.
Okay, well, I'm Darren Simpson, and I'm also known online as the Backyard Buddhist. I'm a Soto Zen novice um, priest who basically I've been in religion all of my life. I've started when I at the Atlanta Soto Zen Center about 30 years ago, where I took my first vows and took my Zakya Dakudo in May of last year, and I'm on the teaching staff at the Atlanta Soto Zen Center for the newcomers and occasionally give a Dharma talk. But then, anyway, yeah, so I do articles on the Backyard Buddhist
Mm.
geared towards hopefully helping people to find some way out of suffering, as we're all, I know we want to, to we post these articles for the benefit of others. It's a uh, kind of a affair of the heart, so to speak. So,
Yeah,
but
they're
that's what I
wonderful.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
been enjoying your articles, so thank you
oh, thank you.
for what you do.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
So we talked about the theme of sin and suffering, and that is, I think, something that would be very interesting to hear from you. You also spent some time in the Christian world, and I myself grew up in a Christian tradition and have a little bit of familiarity with some Buddhist traditions, but not a whole lot. So I'm still very much, I'm more novice than you are.
Okay.
So, so I'm curious what you would say on this theme.
Well, I did spend about over 20 years in the Christian world, first as an Anglican priest and then converted, became Russian Orthodox. Went to seminary, earned my doctorate through Wolsey Hall, or it's actually it's it's an Anglican seminary. And when I went into the Orthodox priesthood, they said, "Well, Father, you have to have some sort of Orthodox credentials." So I said, "Well, I'm not going back to school. I mean, I'm not going to do this." And so they gave me an honorary Master of Divinity from Holy Orthodox Seminary, and it's a big, beautiful piece of paper we can put on the wall and everything now. And so everybody like, "Oh, well, what's it say?" uh, so, but it's in big Latin letters and everything. But yeah, it's pretty on the wall. That's all it's about good for.
Oh,
Um,
it sounds gorgeous.
it's fun. It's interesting coming from Orthodoxy, which is considered the most conservative, most um, theologically astute of all the Christian traditions. Um, they make the Southern Baptist Convention look liberal. Um, but I served in a monastery for 15 years in Georgia, and it's interesting when you counsel people from one sort of theological view, and then you come into a completely different one, because your mind has changed. If you keep your mind open, you find that everything changes. Um, I went from having how would you say it? I went from having a relationship with a deity to being coming to deity itself. I know that's going to curl some people's toes, but when they asked me, so what's different about it? I said, well, God just changed the dresses. That's all. It's a much more in a looking in type of situation. Even when I would give confession, I would talk to people on different terms of being, and not sort of like, well, you did this sin, aren't you sorry for this sin? I mean, you should be sorry for this sin. Did you manage to do this, and what do you think God's thinking? And then they would sit there and say, I don't know. I said, well, God's thinking that He's angry because you're hurting yourself. It became to that point. It says you're causing your own suffering, and that's the way it always is. So with any of the things. So when we look at sin in the West, sin is looked at as being, this is bad. You can't do this. Don't do this. Don't do that. In the East, we sit here and say, well, of course you don't do those things, and here's why. And said, it's not so much the external effect that you're having. You know, a Greek Orthodox priest once said to me one time something I really thought was wonderful. Said, every sin is a grievous wound in the fabric of the universe. I said, that's brilliant. I said, when we look at that and we look at this truth, says, in the sort of way of when we look in the Buddhist sense of things, we see that, well, we're causing our own suffering. We're not going to, there's not a deity sitting there judging us. We're simply doing this ourselves. Whatever comes to us is because of what we've done. Every single thing has a cause. Every single thing has an effect. And said, and unfortunately, when people who are saying, well, why is this all happening to me? He says, well, it's an effect. Why not happen to you? What are you doing? So, people need to take a personal responsibility. And so sin in the West is different than looked at what sin is in the East, because they really have no concept of sin in the East. We really have a concept of because of the Buddha, we have a concept of rightful speech and wrongful speech, we say by skillful means and unskillful means. And so they're just simply acts, words, and thoughts, but the intention behind them and how they affect people are what really causes the color come out in that act. And so maybe that's clear as mud now. I'm not sure, but I've done one thing or the other.
Yeah, so it's a slightly different sort of perspective. I really like that quote that from the Orthodox priest, was it, that about the fabric of the universe, that there is this thing that we do that affects, and we are also, I think, what you're talking about, affected by cause and effect, our own choices, and so forth. So that, that question of why is this happening to me, we can, from the Buddhist tradition, take a look at where these things might have come from and take responsibility or take action in that way. So for the tradition that you find yourself in now, if someone came and said to you, maybe not in a confession type of thing, I don't believe there's that kind of a format for this kind of thing, but hey, I'm feeling terrible about this or that, what would be your prescription or thing that you would work with them?
I would say, well, how do you feel now? And when they tell me, so they say, well, I feel horrible about it. I says, okay, well, that's an effect. And I said, how's it working out for you? It's the second question I would use. How's it working out for you? I did this in confession too. So how's it working out for you? Oh, not really good. I said, well, then you shouldn't do the same thing over and over again. Because everyone knows, doing the same thing over and over and over again is hoping for a different outcome is the definition for insanity. And so the problem is that we're living in a society that actually is doing that. And we're living in this realm that says, well, we'll just try it different this time because I'm going to get it different this time. So the problem is that why not do it? Why not do it at all? Why not try a different way? A friend of mine's a jailer down in Florida. It's so funny. He actually told me a guy that he had come into holding, and he's like sitting there with his rap sheet, and it's like, it's a big teleprompter page. He said, hey, I want to show you something. It's like, so let's see here, larceny, petty larceny, burglary. He said, I've got 5 pages of this. He said, let me ask you a question. How's this job working out for you? I said, because I don't think you're very good at it. and the same thing is that when we're dealing with people who have done things that causes harm, that causes this, you just want to shake them a little bit and say, how's this working out for you? He says, don't you see? I said, you're trying to the same thing. It's nothing but bringing suffering. It's always going to bring suffering. I said, aren't you, you're not very good at this whole, wrongful work, wrongful thought, wrongful word thing. You're not really good at it. And we're not really meant to be good at it. We're not really designed to be good at it. We're designed as human beings We hopefully we have the sense of the original mind of a newborn. And everything's new. It's not really forming any kind of opinions about anything. It's just happening. And that's reality just happening right there. You know, we're designed to carry that through our lives, but something happens. And we condition our children to follow the same patterns that we were put through. And we keep perpetuating this wrongful course of action, this wrongful sense of morality, this wrongful sense of deeds and words and things and relations, and we start forming this shell around ourselves, and now we're now this completely independent entity when it was never designed to be that way. Yeah, and so, I think that the way the Buddha realized was that, hey, you know, when we have this, when we start to form a sense of ego, we cease to be free. When we start to form this sense of I this, I that, I, mine, my, that's when the separation happens. And that's why we feel so manic most of the times, because we don't have a connection, or we don't see the connection that's really there. We are so busy with building the ego that we forget, that we forgot to put a door in. So,
So how does one work with this? How does one return to sort of that openness that once upon a time was us?
Show me your face before your father was born, was the Zen master saying. And how do we do this? He says, well, we people in Zen think the most direct and fastest way is Zazen, is meditation, shikantaza, just sitting. Leonard Cohen, who was also he was a marvelous musician and was also a amazing Zen follower. In San Francisco, he attended San Francisco Zen Center. He attended Tassajara and all these other places. But the thing was, he had a very interesting quote. I love it. He said, when one first starts Zazen, nothing happens. And then a little bit later, nothing happens again. And that's the thing is that we try these ways of doing things. Or we try to do this, we try to do that, we're going to do this, going to do that. I'm going to go to the high mountain over here and talk to the guys who's just trying to find a way to get down. I'm just trying this and that and the other things. And the problem is that the only Zen that you're going to experience is that which you bring with yourself. If a person can't sit down in the middle of downtown, Manhattan during rush hour and meditate, you just can't meditate. And so the idea of doing something, I got to do something about this. I've got to do something about this. I got to do something about that. Why? You don't have to do anything about this. Sit down. Be quiet. Shut up. Bodhidharma said, sit long enough. Sit so long that the ego itself gets up, gets bored, and gets up and leaves. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we try to do. We just sit. We sit there, and all things that are happening at this moment start to come back to the breath in each moment of breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out, coming to this point here. I am breathing. I am breathing in. I take in the air. I am breathing out. I'm breathing out. And simply come on back to that every time. And when you start getting carried away, there's little flights of fancy here, little flights of fancy here, the butterflies come in, the monkeys start talking. Then you realize, oh, I see you, but you're my monkey. And so you come back to your center. And you keep doing that. That's what sitting is about. You just keep doing that, coming back to that place, coming back to that moment. Your mind flies away with thoughts. Yeah. Anxiety. Let that be. Just leave that alone, as someone told me before. Leave that alone. That's the voice I hear in my head. It says, leave that alone. It was a foreman that I used to work with in an auto shop. He was Ethiopian. And whenever he wanted to say something about, just leave it alone, he's leave that alone. And so now it's ingrained in my psyche. That's the sound of my own mind now. Say, just leave that alone. And I leave it alone. And it works until the next time. And then you leave that alone too. That's the thing. you come to those points where we're not the all kinds of positive things about sitting and about meditation are just side effects. I want to become more peaceful. Yeah, it'll happen most likely with time. I don't want to think so much. Well, that'll never happen. You're always going to think if you're alive.
Yeah.
You just can't do that. I'm sorry. I want to find the answers to everything. Well, yeah, that's probably going to happen at some point, but you already knew it. But the thing about it is that the true sense of sitting should just be sitting just for the sake of sitting. You know, Ellison Roshi, my teacher, said, sit still enough, quiet enough, long enough, and the change takes place. It's not a conscious decision. It's not a decision to do this consciously. It's simply, I've made the decision, the intention to sit down. I've made the intention, as the Buddha said to Angulimala, who was chasing him. Angulimala was chasing after him. He was going to add another finger to his necklace of fingers. So the word Angulimala means, and so he was racing after the Buddha with a machete almost, and he said, "Stop!" And the Buddha turned around, who hadn't been running. He turned around and says, "But I have stopped. I have stopped hating. I have stopped being swayed by things. I have stopped. I've stopped." Basically being not woken up, and that's simply what Buddha means. Buddho means awake. And so that's the whole mission. That's the whole of the Buddha's message. Is I teach one thing and one thing alone: suffering and the cessation of suffering. That's it.
And that's accomplished through sitting and letting go and the breath. So the person who has the rap sheet, who's coming in, the prescription for them would be the same as for anyone else. Sit and stop, basically. Breathe. Focus on the breathing.
Yeah.
And then that will begin to show up in the rest of our lives.
The person who comes into the Zendo says, well, I'm a thief. Well, sit long enough to where you no longer wish to steal. So the person comes into the Zendo says, I'm a murderer. Well, good, sit over there. Sit long enough till you no longer wish to murder people. You have to find yourself, and the thing is that what people do is not about what their true nature is. What people end up doing is because of decisions they make, which are built into the ego. They build that castle. We all do. That's why no one may save another. You have to save yourself. That's the whole thing about it. Persons who, the good thing about Zen is that it casts no judgments. There's no judgments. There's no good people, no bad people. They're just people who make decisions. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people in society who make decisions. A lot of people whose decisions we don't agree with, but really, ultimately, they all fall down into this whole Eightfold Path thing. The first question is this, first of all, is this a worthy intention? Is this something that's it's going to cause suffering, or is it something that's going to bring good? Is it something that's going to bring the cessation of suffering? Then it's good to say. But there you have rightful speech. Rightful action, rightful thinking, rightful all these things. And the definition in the Pali, which is real funny, for the word that we translate as right, is not really even correct. It's not right thought. It's to think excellently. It's to speak excellently. It's a superlative of the things but we kind of get away with it because we're Westerners and we don't know better. Right, word, right, thought, right. It means the same thing. It means the very same thing. No, it's a paradigm shift. We come to expect we expect the least from ourselves, but we could really expect the best.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what Zen, I believe, is about, is because it's about simply accepting nothing but the best of what you're capable of doing. We don't have to compromise those things. We're given this life, which is a precious life. We're born into this world as human beings with all kinds of cognitive functions, and yet we use this intellect that we have to do terrible things to each other because it's easy. But when Zen says, well, why not simply you're simply portraying the very worst of what you're capable of doing. Why not simply turn around and do differently? Same words, hamartia, in the Christian Christian thought process of where sin is hamartia. This is missing the mark. This is, well, and sometimes when you take a look at missing the mark, that's the same thing when we say in Zen says, why don't you just simply stop? Just stop. Turn around. That's it. These things are unwholesome. Look how they affect you. You start looking at how these things affect you, then all of a sudden you become mindful. Mindfulness is a beautiful trait that happens in meditation. People will sit in meditation for long periods of time in retreat. Some of them will cry, because of things that are going on in their minds, emotionally, things getting brought up and expelled out. And that's perfectly okay. Meditation is I think a force for good, even if it should be taught in much more places, because our way, how's that working?
Yeah.
We put Bibles in prisons, but we don't enforce any kind of tradition at home. I know that's the thing. So, well, that's religion. Says that's true, but believe what you want to believe. But Christianity and in the very essence of Christianity has the very same purpose that Zen has. We speak of compassion. We speak of metta in the Buddhist beliefs. And we also look at what Christ said. He said, love your enemies. Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. The Sermon on the Mount is still one of the most beautiful and most profound statements ever made by any human being. And we have this ability to put that into practice, but we don't, for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about with sitting down and meditating and doing a practice on a regular basis, that puts some feet on how to practice or how to get there, right? This is one of the things to do. Yeah.
I remember, the thing that changed about me when I came out of the church. I used the meditation to help me get over some angry feelings I was actually having, because the way some things happened when I left was really not right. And so that's the one thing that really helped me, was to actually have a practice of meditation going on while all these things were going on in my head. Anger, betrayal, things like that were going through my head and everything. And it was the meditation that helped me get out of it. It wasn't a situation where it was not the essential praying to a deity. So I don't think I've said a well, I don't know how long it's been since I've actually said a prayer. My wife, who is Christian, and I support her faith, and I support her in that, and I pray for I do pray for the benefit of when she's around and things like that. But for a long time, that was the only way we got to eat. So you got to say the prayer. It's gonna make you guys wait. I'm not very hungry, but it was the people of all traditions can find this particular original face if they simply seek hard enough. Thomas Merton, I think, the Catholic mystic and monk, he walked both lines. He walked as a Roman Catholic Trappist and monk, and he walked as a Zen Buddhist too, very well. He had the benefits of some very good teachers too, but he's the only American, or the only person to which a monument to a mystical event in America, which there's a monument to this thing that actually exists over in Kentucky, I believe it is.
Hmm.
Market Street in what's the capital of Kentucky? It's now escaped from me. Um, anyway, on Market Street, there's a monument
Yeah.
where Thomas Merton had a kind of a miraculous intervention. He was walking down there and he saw, he just was struck by an ecstasy, and he was down on his knees like, you know, and rolling around and everything. And when they finally got him to kind of, become reasonable again, this is what was it? He said, in just a moment, I saw the divine effulgence that surrounds all human beings. And I guess the problem with that would be that if we all were able to see it, we would just simply bow down and worship each other. And so, in the West, it's a dichotomy of viewpoints. There's a difference. Western Catholicism has always taught in the seminaries and things like that the until baptism, a child is essentially evil. I've seen some children, which I thought myself. But anyway, long story short, evil. One child, I wondered if the baptism hadn't taken because I took her out of the water and she's just still screaming. I'm like, just gonna put her down one more time, see if it works. But that's not true. In the East, even in the Orthodox field, we say that human beings are divine beings.
Mm-hmm.
They're essentially good.
Yeah.
In Zen, we look at it as basically divine. The beings are beings. What are they? Well, it's nothing more than the body of the Buddha. You're nothing more than the body of Buddha, nothing less either.
Yeah.
So there's that sense of we don't realize, that we're all enlightened. We don't realize that we all have this higher purpose. We don't realize, or that we don't care, that we're called to much greater things than we're doing now. And so, but, that's the nature of the world. Everyone was asleep when the Buddha left his father's place, except for the elephants. The elephants who were wise, they were awake. So.
Yeah, you mentioned prayer, and one of the practices that I have had for a while now is centering prayer, which is a meditation, and that juxtaposition of meditation as a form of prayer, I think, is apt, and I think that's partly what you're talking about. There is this opening to a different way of being, basically, of stopping and being.
Yeah, it's true. Orthodoxy, there's the tradition of the hesychasm, which is the hesychists were basically monks that they're also called navel gazers,
Right.
because they sit in these seats in the monastery, and this intensely absorbed into this one repeated prayer: Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy upon me, the sinner. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy upon me, the sinner. Over and over and over again. Sometimes they reach this state of being which we in the Zen field would call samadhi. It's a sense of being everything at the same time, and then realizing that connection. All of a sudden, the connections are there, and then of course they're gone. And then you spend all your other sessions just trying to get back to that state. Then you realize, oh gosh, I'm grasping. Well, that's not good. Maybe I should stop this. Oh, that's desire. Yeah, that's desire. I'm just so happy that I got to this point. Oh, there's pride, and it just all goes downhill from there. But the idea is being conscious and being aware. You have to be awake. You have to be aware. To be aware, you have to be mindful. And to be mindful, you have to be observant. And you have to realize that well, it's not always what you see. And in prayer, what we were doing, actually, we were lifting up. The prayer for Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy upon me, the sinner, is no different than Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. the prayer, the prayer of compassion, or Om Tari Tutare Ture Swaha, the green Tara mantra. And do that quite a few times and had amazing results with our poor little lizard over here. Anyway, but yeah, it's the difference is that in the deistic religions, of course, we're praying to a divine being.
Mm-hmm.
In Zen, we're actually forming this intention ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, that's where the address change comes into play. And I think that's perfectly fine. I think that if, I'm not a dead Zen guy, so I don't know what happens after life, but I can tell you that either God is in heaven or God is inside of us, or perhaps the two are interposed together, depending on who you are and what you're doing. Are you making are you creating heaven or are you creating hell? Because wherever that's happening, God's dwelling right in the very middle of that. And so wherever you are praying, you hear this prayer, you're making this prayer, then whatever that principle is within you is also hearing that prayer too. Now, we're not talking about a situation where there's this deity that's living inside of me. It's not like that. But in the scriptures we look at, Christ said the kingdom of heaven is within.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take him at his word. If we're going to take him at his word and say, this is my body, this is my blood, we're going to also take him at his word. So when he said that too, it says, well, the kingdom of heaven is within. And in the creed, our Father who art in heaven. So I'm beginning to think less and less that's a physical place and more that it's actually a physical being, state of being. We create hell, or we create heaven with every single word, with every single thought, every single intention, every single act. Hell's the same way too. We do that too.
Yeah.
So, nothing different than Augustine's building the city of God. It's the same. So.
Yeah, there is this definite reality where we do create. I mean, if we are bringing in hatred and dissension and all of these other things, then we are creating our own hell and living it out, right? As versus bringing into being the one could say the fruits of the spirit, compassion, all of these things. These things are we have to, with intention, nurture and create in ourselves and in the world in that way. Yeah,
I agree. In your experience of how you've been brought up, how have you, as the person of the cloth, actually taken a look and seen? You're obviously a servant of God through the people as well, to his people. How do you view yourself in terms of your relationship with God? How do you view yourself as how you're fulfilling that mission?
So one of the things that I am used to is the self as a tool, as a couples counselor. One of the and as a therapist in general, one of the first things is that we are first and foremost the tool of the work that we do. So we cannot help anyone anyone any further than where we have gone, and it is the same in being a minister of I guess the concept would be practicing what you preach, but for me, the places that I have come from, I grew up in a Christian home and had the morals and the ethics and praying and the concepts of sin and all of these things, and one of the transitions for me along the way was moving towards the more mystical side of Christianity, with Cynthia Bourgeot and reading her work, and beginning a practice of centering prayer, and beginning to hone myself as an instrument of a different sort. And earlier when you were talking about, and when I had mentioned something about putting legs on what it is that we do, this is very important, right? The St. Francis prayer, "Make me an instrument." Well, how do we do this, right? What are the things that we are engaging in and doing that help us to be that in the world? And so one of the things that I have appreciated about Buddhism is the array of tools, if you will, of ways that can be helpful in building this, and there are a lot of wonderful things within the Christian tradition as well. I think one of the parts that for me is elucidated with bringing in aspects of other traditions is this piece of, okay, there is this wisdom, right, as a baseline that's across all of our traditions, and that we can tap into if we would pay attention, and really do the work of doing that. For me, it is important to do work out in the world. And for me, my experience has been I cannot do that unless I am internally prepared, that intention, that place, that coming from a different way of being. And that is all a work in progress. I mean, when the rubber hits the road, it's around, when I'm cranky in the morning and go down and have an interaction with my spouse. Right? So
that's the best time.
Right? To practice. Then we see the fruits of our practice in the real world.
Yeah. I think you're right, and that the practice of what you're doing, with the couples therapy, with your service to the people, your service to as clergy, and also we would simply call you a bodhisattva, which is one of the most amazing beings to ever come across in our periphery. Bodhisattva. Beings are innumerable. I vow to save them all. My delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to extinguish them. The Dharma gates are boundless. They're impenetrable. I vow to enter them. And the Buddha way is without superior. I vow to realize it. We look at those in the way that medical professionals help their charges, their patients, counselors with the counseled, people who visit the imprisoned, the things such as that. That's a bodhisattva. That's ending suffering. And the vow to bodhisattva is impossible to fulfill, because there will, Kshitigarbha sits in the Buddhist hell, and he teaches people the Dharma even in the midst of hell. He sits with them and he frees the children who are there, with this big brass shukhacha, just opens up the doors just a little bit so they can get out. But the interesting thing about that whole thing is that these are superlatives. And we can never, Kshitigarbha will never get out of hell, because his vow will prevent him from doing so, because there will always be beings born into the world, and there will always be these karmic traces that they leave behind. That's what's reborn. It's not a soul. It's their, and for as Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche said, unfortunately, it's mainly your bad habits that get reborn. Someone asked him that question: if there's no soul and there's no self, what gets reborn? It says, unfortunately, your bad habits. And it's true. The karmic until that karma is all burned up, that's it. And so the beautiful thing about that is you can't. Here's the thing that's almost sad, but it's beautiful. You can't save everyone, but you do save the ones you can, and that's the important thing. You do what you can. And so we have bodhisattvas. I think all the bodhisattvas out there wear scrubs nowadays. They wear scrubs, and it's a beautiful thing to be. Whatever it takes to alleviate suffering, that's what you do. And that's the important thing. The traditions that's across all traditions, and it doesn't matter if you're a Muslim or you're Jewish or a Christian or atheist, agnostic, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever. Those things can be practiced. All those things can be practiced, and none of them conflict with anyone else's beliefs and faiths because it comes from the same source.
Yeah.
Yes, it's only that.
The one source. Well, thank you very much. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I think this might be as good a place to pause as any. I would enjoy having another conversation. See, it's time.
See, it's time being thrown off the air. This is my wife. Chrissy. Chrissy, say hi. Millions and millions of people. I'm just kidding.
Dozens and dozens.
Dozens and dozens of people. Dozens of dozen people.
Well, thank you.
That's wonderful.
Thank you very much, and we should do this again. I would love to talk again.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. May you and all the others be well and stay safe and be free from anger. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and be careful.
Thank you. You too. Be blessed. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.